Hi guys, what is going on, and welcome back to another video on Conqueror's Blade. So obviously, probably as you've gathered from the thumbnail and the title, we are dealing with the Stalwarts. I have previously done a video on them when they released back in Season 5, but since they've kind of so come to dominate our lives so much kind of over the past sort of season and a half, then I really felt they were kind of warranted another video. You know, realistically, they aren't the best unit in the game, but they are probably the most common unit in the game we see at the moment, and they can be very, very frustrating to play against. So I kind of wanted to cover a little bit, 2 points. One, what do they actually like to play? How do I play them? Because I probably play them fairly aggressively compared to some players. And kind of what can we do to counter them? How are we going to be able to deal with these? Because once you've got beyond level 60 and you get thrown into the full fat matchmaking system, you are going to be meeting these guys over and over and over around pretty much every corner. So you've got to be able to find ways to deal with them. What are their weaknesses? What are the main ways in which you can kill them? So before we kind of get into that, let's cover a little bit what the unit actually is, how does it work, and why is it such a pain to deal with? Well, obviously it's a shield unit, but unlike the Spear Sergeants, it has a brace. Now that's its main ability, realistically. Yes, it has an advance. The advance is nice. The advance is nice against low tier units in fairly loose formation. Against other stuff, generally speaking, you're not going to be advancing. It's the brace, which is kind of this unit is really all about. Which is subsequently why I've gone along the top line, because the bracing damage, the double strikes, things like that. You also get the defensive increase. Which leads on to the second key point about this unit. It is hella tanky. Well, at least from a piercing defense point of view. 955, and that is with the unit tree upgrades, just to briefly cover that. That's with the 15%, 10%, maths, come on Evo, 10% piercing defense increase, so that does bump it up a little bit, because these unit tree nodes do affect the Stalwarts, because it's still the same Spear Sergeant, it's just the promoted version, so do bear that in mind. So yeah, so they're a really tanky unit, almost 11,000 hit points. It means they're hard to kill. They also have insane amounts of block. We unfortunately don't get a block statistic in this game, so we can't actually see what their block actually is compared to another unit, but you only have to attack them frontally to realise that it is borderline impossible to go through them frontally with anything but a maul. So really, that leaves flanking and hero abilities and charging units kind of as your options. Obviously, they are a spear unit, so from a charging abilities point of view, most cav is going to get stopped by Stalwarts. That includes Keshigs, Monastic sort of half and half generally get stopped. The new Omega Lancers, they'll get stopped, but Winged Hussars don't. So you can go through these guys with Winged Hussars. Equally, if you're playing Stalwarts, you know you can stop most cav with them, so long as you're braced. Obviously, you have to be activating this brace prior to getting hit by the cav charge, which is not going to be happening for you. On top of that, we know that things like Paladins, I think I've covered in previous videos, can be kind of effective at charging these guys frontally, as well as at the sides and rears, so they can be charged through by certain units. But a lot of lower tier charging units just aren't going to cut it. And a lot of the things like the Halberdier charges, Condottieri charges, things like that aren't going to be realistically effective at going frontally through a unit of Stalwarts. In which case, a lot of it is about getting through the back of the unit. Because once you get around the back, like any shield unit, they have a weak spot. Unit takes 20% more damage from attack to the rear, but on top of that, it pretty much always crits. So it's 20% plus a crit. So it means, even low tier units can start to hit in the rear of Stalwarts for 2,000-3,000. Even with their good armor, that 11,000 hit points goes down remarkably fast once you outflank these guys. So they really are a front-only unit. And that kind of leads on to the biggest issue I see for most people who play them, and same issue for myself, is learning how to control them effectively. Because they brace in one direction, they have a little bit of tilt either side, they'll adjust slightly and stab if someone's just off to the side, but they don't adjust much. And they do not have a cover commander like the Spear Sergeants used to do. So that consequently means that, realistically, it's quite hard to get them into a neat formation blocking your line. And if you've got someone pushing the front of a unit of Stalwarts and someone starts to go around the side, it is pretty much impossible to adjust them to be able to compensate for that. So that's probably their biggest weakness in the sense that it's hard to formationally adjust them very easily. Hopefully that makes sense. We'll see it a little bit once we get into some of the clips. But that's probably, yeah, for me, their biggest area of weakness. Anyway, I think we've probably talked enough, so let's actually just hop into a battle with them now, see how we've been getting on, and see what we can do with these old stalwarts. So, into our first clip. This is a real game of highs and lows. I do a lot right and a lot badly on this one, so I thought it was kind of an interesting one to throw into the video. Initially, I was just up on the walls waiting for the siege towers, but I noticed someone was kind of pushing this bottom wall. I wasn't 100% sure what it was going to be, and I suppose it arguably is slightly risky in case there was cav behind there or something, but decided just to immediately rush whatever it was. It was just a unit of artillery. Yeah, I mean, they go down about as quickly as you would expect. And yeah, easy 20 kills. Bit pointless though. But I was kind of hoping maybe it was something a little bit better, but obviously I guess it kind of made sense that it was going to be a unit of peasants. So with them dead, I guess that then left me the options of what did I want to do next. More than likely, they're not going to be pushing the gateway with any sort of serious manner, so up to the walls. That's kind of where I was thinking, and to start off, I kind of tunnel vision on this unit ahead of me. Thinking of Stalwarts, there's a dual blades there. I was thinking about pushing into the back of him. I was kind of umming and ahhing a little bit. I was worried about reinforcements coming basically off the tower. And then as I turned around, there's actually a huge fight going on behind me. Really bad situational awareness there on my part. And here's where things get even worse. So we push up, clearly looking good, going to push straight into the back of this unit. Okay, domain pikemen are coming from behind. Instead of turning around and dealing with that coming off the tower, I pushed forward straight into the men-at-arms. Now I've got domain pikes behind me. Now I've got 2 heroes and some men-at-arms coming back and I'm completely surrounded. Now I'm in trouble. This is where I recover things though. I turn around and face the heroes. I can block them on that staircase. Neither of those 2 heroes can effectively get me because I can block them in that very narrow alley. And as I said, I can make use of this. And there we go. Bang, both dead. Because they can't push through the front of the Stalwarts. And that's what I said earlier on in the start of the video. Frontally, Stalwarts are almost invincible. So I can really capitalise on that by blocking a very, very narrow passage, i.e. that bottom of that staircase, where they can't get through. And that means I can block the biggest threat to me, the 2 heroes, and the unit of men-at-arms, and focus on the more minor threat, those domain spearmen that are immediately behind me. So it enables me to deal with that situation in 2 and break it down, block one while I deal with the other, and then as my skills come off cooldown, use that to finish off those 2 heroes. And so it was bad that I got into that situation, but kind of shows how it can be recovered quite well. And that's one of the biggest things you've got to be wary of Stalwarts. What should the enemy have done differently there? Probably shouldn't have taken that fight. Realistically, those men-at-arms, once they'd got clear, they still had most of their unit left intact, and they went back to try and save a unit of domain pikes, you know, like a 70 leadership unit. That wasn't really worth saving, and costing themselves 2 lives and their own men-at-arms. The men-at-arms would have been much better off if they could have got a clean charge against me. If they could have cleanly charged frontally into the Stalwarts in the narrow street, would have worked much better. It's never going to work over a turret like that because the men-at-arms are just very unlikely to cleanly charge down that staircase. So they lost a lot of the main damage, the main way they can deal with Stalwarts as those men-at-arms, they didn't capitalise on. And that's really, I think, what enabled me to sort of do well in that sort of situation. So anyway, we lost 8 dudes, but as I'm coming back, I'm kind of deciding what I want to do next. Quite a bit of stuff coming over that hill. There's another enemy unit of Stalwarts. That's fine, I'm not too afraid of one, but there's a couple of enemy heroes and a little bit of other stuff. A little bit too much sort of crap coming over the hill for me to really want to deal with it. And then as we push around here, we get quite a lot of stuff coming through. First we get some Omega Lancers. We get a good chunk of them as they come over, but realistically, as we get hit by the Paladin charge, you see we take more and more damage. I'm not going to move the unit at this point, even though I've been outflanked, and I'm going to focus on using my hero to try and control the units that have got past me, and try and keep that little impasse in place. You can see that that's ultimately what they've got to deal with. That Maul player there would have been much better focusing on my little Stalwarts on that corner that are holding that choke point than just trying to sort of fight in the open a bit more. And that enables, even with only the 7 remaining dudes, for me to push through and push them out. And that takes us to just over 120 kills and shows the real power of this unit. Thankfully, we even had a friendly dual blade here, and we were able to sneakily get the kill on that Maul right at the end, which was quite satisfying, I can't deny. So with that in, obviously by this point, the aggression adrenaline is going, and I just want to attack anything that moves. So with my meager 7 remaining Stalwarts, I'm trying to push up and find my kind of opportunity, look for my opportunities. I was thinking about waiting down at the bottom of this staircase. Thought these ASAPs might push into me, and although probably not going to be winning, we can hold them up, is what I was thinking. Do a chunk of damage against that longsword. Partly he's momentum himself into a bracing unit, so it means he takes sort of a disproportionate amount of damage. So yeah, not such a good move on his part. And then, realistically, these spear sergeants have a hard time getting through us. These ASAPs try and have a go, but a lot of them end up just colliding with that one model of Marder Teletori. And then, as they hit the bracing units, yeah, it doesn't really work very well for them. We get a friendly unit of ASAPs going back up to back us up, and that enables me to really just sort of start to push up and push into these spear sergeants. And yeah, we've got 7 models left. The unit is pretty much dead. It's easy to just write these guys off, but they still are getting damage. Thanks to that longsword for keeping me alive. If he didn't give me that health buff, I would have bled to death here. So big thanks to him. And look at the damage we're getting. And we're still racking up kills against high tier units here. Even with, well, now 6 guys left alive. Shows how deadly these guys can be. So for me, it's all about making use of that brace. As we then clear the corner and push up, unfortunately they're dead. Obviously there's just too few of them left. Down to 2 of them. I'm just using them in a loose formation now to fight up the remaining stairs. And yeah, realistically we're not going to be killing a lot else other than that bow hero who was nicely died to a flying reaper. Obviously push into these few Jav sergeants. Might as well try and get them before they can get back to the supply and refill their ammunition. Surprisingly tanky, these Jav sergeants. I was actually kind of surprised how good their block was. I thought they would go down a little bit easier than that. But that really sums up what the Stalwarts can do. They're all about fighting in those narrow spaces, but as soon as they get outflanked, as soon as someone gets behind them, that's when it all goes to pieces. But for me, I seem to do better when I play them rashly, when I sort of charge myself in, get myself into situations, and then try and pull myself out. That's when I seem to do well with the unit. It seems to work better for me in that capacity than being careful. So we are on to Sun City with our second clip, just capping the A point when we get quite a rush of people coming up the stairs at the bottom. Well, I just thought I'd get the last few cap points, rude not to, but realistically I was quite looking forward to pushing into this cluster because they're all on a corner. Yeah, I mean, you're never going to beat Stalwarts in that situation. And that, I think, is probably one of the main things where people go wrong. You know, we talk about outflanking them, we talk about things that can push through them frontally and the sort of limited number of units that there is in that capacity. But I think one of the biggest ones is situational understanding. I think a lot of players feel they have to attack in many situations. If they see a unit, they feel they have to attack, irrespective of whether it's a good decision or not. And I certainly find myself in that camp sometimes, and I often do it. But you know, if you see a unit of Stalwarts frontally on a wall, and you can't outflank them, you've not got a suitable unit to be punching through the front, and you know, you're not trying to cling on to the last point for a few seconds, then don't attack them. Don't just suicide into them. So many people, as I've been playing these for sort of the past 20 battles or so, just walk into the front of me and die. Do nothing. Don't even get a single kill. You know, maybe damage poor old Bob on the end of the formation. You know, it's not worth it. What was the point in that? And so often this seems to be the case. So, yeah, sometimes you have to leave the Stalwarts and wait for a better opportunity. Because there are sometimes, you know, better opportunities arise, as we'll kind of see later on in this battle where some of the players definitely get the better of me. Situational understanding is probably really important in dealing with these guys, taking your opportunities carefully. Which is part of the reason I play them so aggressively, because by pushing forwards all the time, I'm really limiting the other players' options, because that gives them no time to think and adjust, and that's why I tend to be really aggressive with them. So anyway, as you can see, we basically just pushed down. We'd actually captured the B point already by this point, but I still thought I'd complete the loop. So yeah, from A, Realistically, we just flattened everything in the way. We haven't taken any losses. Got to the supply point, captured the supply point. Someone actually charged a full stack of Cataphract Lancers there on the supply point into a double stack of Stalwarts, and basically just lost the whole tier 5 units. That was a real painful loss for them because that's well over 300 leadership. Although Cataphract Lancers are definitely a unit that needs a bit of an improvement. So in this case, we're pushing back down, trying to get back on the floor, looking for our opportunity. Just push straight in. I push a bit too deep actually here. As you see, some of the unit manages to clip through the back, but there isn't really enough for it to be a massive problem for me. But yeah, definitely got a little bit too deep on the bracing. I obviously, as you've seen probably from the footage so far, I don't really use advance all that often. It has its moments, and I do sometimes use it, but generally speaking, I'm just not that much of a fan of it really. I much prefer just to push in and brace. It kind of works better for me. Anyway, as we're clearing through, we're pushing onto the C point, and this is where things start to go wrong, and kind of you'll see a little bit more about the mispositioning. So as we land on point, we're getting bombarded by all these Falconetti. So let's slow things down a little bit. Initially, the short sword comes right round behind me. It's an excellent move by him part. It means I had to turn the whole unit around to try and deal with him. I'm being shot at from behind, and it opens up a huge opportunity for me to be outflanked. The rest of his team weren't quite pushing enough, so it virtually didn't completely work out for him. But in the meantime, I'm still being hit by the Falconetti. I feel I have no choice but to charge forwards now, so I go on maximum aggression mode and just push straight into these Jav Sergeants, because I'm trying to get clear of the Falconetti, and I'm trying to keep the key C point being capped. So I apply pressure here, push straight in, but the unit's really clumped up, and we've got multiple enemy heroes turning up now. So now I'm really in trouble. I'm trying to adjust the formation into a wider stance, but as the unit's getting knocked down, I'm getting outflanked, and I get myself killed. So a lot of that comes down to actually the formation, more than anything. They didn't push through the front of the unit. They were never able to push through the front of the unit. They were able to actually finish me off as a hero, but a lot of that came down to getting the Stalwarts out of position and being able to outflank and push them in that way. And that really sums up my entire experience about defeating Stalwarts, or being defeated as a Stalwart player over these last 20 or 30 battles. Very, very rarely does anyone push through from the front. It just doesn't happen with anything but a few select units. The only way you kill them, the only real way you kill them, is by outflanking them or getting them out of position. And that is just how you need to be thinking about dealing with them. And it just seems to be time and time again, people try and push through the front and just absolutely melt their units. But you just have to wait for those opportunities where there's those stray Falconetti balls, or you can get round the back, and then when you do, bang, the unit pretty much dies instantly. So that's all for me. I'm pleased to be finally free of these guys, and I'm going to be going back to my Paladins because I'm much more a Paladin fan than a Stalwart fan. But it's been fun to check them out again. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video, and hopefully we can all go on to counter a few more Stalwarts on the battlefield. Thanks for watching, guys. I shall see you all on the next video.